welcome to Two Goals. I'm Katia,
And I'm Maria Laura.
and keeping up with our Leadership Women football series, we are thrilled to announce the intervention of Brittany Gropp in today's podcast. Originally from the United States, but currently living in Seville, Spain, Brittany has specialized herself in business development, partnerships, and communications for companies such as Atlas Corp and Demosphere. Nowadays, she is working in her own awarded social enterprise, FutboLISTAS, where she teaches girls life skills through football and mentorship. Brittany, welcome to Two Goals.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So, Brittany, thank you for being here. And starting, we have to call your roots. And football is a sport culturally connected to female athletes in the USA. Actually, soccer was the word used for the sport at a young age, for sure. So, as an American girl back then, what was your connection with football? How did it stick with you?
Yeah, so originally, honestly, I wanted to be just like my next door neighbor, Jennifer. She was about 5 years older than me, and she played, and I would always see her practicing in the little side yard in between our houses. And I always wanted to go out and hang out with her and play with her. And because of her, I signed up the second I could. I think it was like right before I turned 5. Got on a team and started playing. As you mentioned, there's a lot of opportunities for girls to get involved in football in the US or soccer in the US. And so, yeah, it was quite easy to get signed up. And it was really easy to stick with it too, because as you also mentioned, it's very normal for girls to play, and it's encouraged. And also I had some incredible role models who I could watch playing both in the neighborhood and on TV through the US women's national team. So, I mean, especially now that I've traveled and lived in other countries, I really realized how blessed I was to have so much exposure to women in football at such a young age that, it's really something I took for granted because I didn't know until much later in life that wasn't the case in other places.
You went after the childhood that you're describing. You went to study arts and communication at Virginia Tech University. Was this also related, or did you have in mind back then that there was a connection between your professional career that you intended to start growing and sports, and also because you did an internship on sports department on a TV channel? So maybe was this big dream that you were building, connecting sports, football or soccer, and communications from your side?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. So I, again, started playing at 5. And then right when I could join the competitive groups, which I think was around probably 9 or 10, I was all the time playing soccer at very high levels in the US, traveling every weekend. Like my social life was the soccer field, and eventually I just got a little bit burnt out. Like we were practicing so often. Every weekend was some showcase tournament in some place in the country. And I made the decision at 17 to stop playing competitively. I have since always been playing in some rec form. I love the game. Well, I guess when my body tells me I'm too old, I'll step away. But until that moment, I will keep playing because it brings me so much joy. But I did have a really interesting crossroad because making that decision at 17 meant that I wasn't going to play in college, which my whole life growing up, I just kind of assumed I was. I had the skill level too, and I had the passion to continue with it. And then once that passion kind of faded away in terms of the competitive part of things, I was like, oh, well, what am I going to do? Like, what career path should I go after? And so I definitely, I mean, this is one of the reasons I think podcasts like this are so important. I mean, Two Goals is providing something that we all definitely needed back then and really still need nowadays, which is to give visibility to other ways for us to stay involved in the game when we're no longer a player. I think coaching, reffing are kind of more obvious opportunities that we know a little bit more about. But there's so many things that people can do professionally to be involved in football and stay involved in football. Back then at 18, when I went to university, my I think really only idea that I had of how to stay involved was sports broadcasting. And I've been a soccer player my whole life. I also played basketball pretty competitively, but I'm just a sports lover in general. Like my childhood is like watching games with my dad. And so it seemed like, kind of the perfect combination of the writing and the people skills that I knew I would enjoy using in a role, and also the passion for soccer and sport in general. And it was an incredible experience. I really enjoyed my internship. It was at a local station down in Roanoke, Virginia, about 45 minutes away from Virginia Tech. And I interned in the sports department there under three guys, actually one of whom is now on NBA TV, Chris Miles. He's my mentor and now one of my best friends. He's about to have his second kid. She was due yesterday. Hopefully she'll be here soon. I'll be her godmother. So just a lifelong connection that I made with him there. Really learned from them about that sector, but also learned that I didn't really think it was quite for me. So I loved the internship and it was great, but not having had much education in terms of what that career path would look like, not having had a ton of exposure to people and their stories in terms of sports broadcasting, it was news to me that, it's typically you start by signing 2 to 3 year contracts and you kind of work your way around different cities. And you start with lower populations, obviously, when you're more entry level, smaller towns, and then you kind of work your way up and move around a lot. And it sounds funny now that I'm based in Spain on the other side of the world, but to me, I was hesitant, knowing that it could be, 10 years minimum till I'd be back in the DC area again. And so ultimately I pivoted away from that, stuck with business development, marketing, a lot of the communications work that, is also involved in broadcasting. But decided, to step away for a little bit. But I was connecting, obviously very close with Chris, but also connecting with one of my other mentors from that TV station when I launched FutboLISTAS 2 years ago. And his reply was like, I am not at all surprised that you found a way to bring sports back into your career.
Fantastic. And it's so interesting that you said it was something that you wanted, but actually you recognized probably it would not be your future. And this is so important for us to understand. It's not a failure. Sometimes that mentally we can think it's a failure. We always wanted this, and actually we kind of enter, in your case it was an internship, and we reckon that it is not for us. And actually for me this is the right pathway, right? We need to try it to understand it. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we will talk about later the fact that you brought back sports to your life. But actually you said something also in the beginning, that social life was on the soccer field. Your social life was on the soccer field. But your professional pathway is really interesting because you worked for more than 5 years at Atlas Corp, an international network of non-profit leaders and organizations that promotes innovation, cooperation, and solutions to address the world's 21st century challenges through an overseas fellowship. And during your time there, you performed as a partnerships manager and partnerships director. And I mentioned the company's description because when we talk about it, it may seem a totally different industry, other than football, of course. But amongst other sectors, we know you worked with sports there. So can you tell us a bit about the experience and how this experience shaped you as a professional?
Yeah. And I will start by saying, as I try to, anytime I'm invited to speak anywhere, that I think in general, as you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your career, it's as important to know what you don't want to do as it is to know what you do want to do. And so even prior to Atlas Core, I had a couple of jobs that definitely were not for me, but that paved my path to eventually get where I am now, right? Atlas Core is an incredible organization. Obviously, I stayed there for 5 years, just had the biggest impact on me that anything has in my life, for sure. And I think, I came in with the sales and partnerships background, which was the work I was doing at Atlas Core. It sounds a little funny because Atlas Core is a nonprofit, but we did have a very sustainable model. So we bring, or still say we, Atlas Core brings international change makers to spend 12 to 18 months in the US at mission-driven organizations. And my role was to identify those organizations in the US and encourage them to take one of our fellows on, and they paid to have one of our fellows on their team. And Atlas Core and its fellows just completely opened my eyes to the social sector. I had never worked in the nonprofit world. I didn't even know that social enterprises and social entrepreneurship were things. So I had the opportunity to learn from, Atlas Core has got to be up to probably 800, 850 fellows now from over 95 countries. And so I had the opportunity to learn from these incredible mid-career professionals affecting change in their communities in many different ways. There were certainly some who were using sport for social change, but there were others who were, in the global health sector, or working to fight for equal education, LGBTQ rights, women's rights. It just opened my eyes to, and what Atlas Core's really premise is that, we're all trying to fight against some of these same issues globally. And the best way to overcome those issues is to exchange ideas and perspectives. We'll get there a lot faster if we work together, right? And so, I about, 3 years into my time with Atlas Core, just was kind of sitting in the fact that I was really frustrated that my experience growing up, I had so much opportunity to play football, but that in Seville, where I was based, there were very few opportunities for girls. And I can honestly say with no doubt in my mind, I never would have tried to change that. I never would have thought to create an organization to try to address that if I hadn't have learned from the Atlas Core Fellows and all of the amazing progress they've made, certainly, but projects that they started in their home countries to address whatever topic they were passionate about. So truly an incredible organization. I'm actually visiting family in the States right now, and part of my family is my Atlas Core family. So I'm seeing them this evening, actually. So really excited for that.
Well, definitely, we will have to send this to the Atlas Corp people. I mean, the way they shape you as a professional in a very positive way. I think, let me say this first, there are many people out there who are not very lucky with their professional experiences. Maybe they have, excuse my language, but maybe like not kind of crappy bosses and awful environments where they develop. But in your case, this is good because at the end of the day, they kind of like, they put a seed on you, like they kind of like cultivate this passion for social entrepreneurship. And this is how you ended up founding your own program, own project called FutboLISTAS, that you already mentioned how this started in Sevilla, where you combine football practice with English instruction and interaction with professional female mentors. Can you please pitch on your own words, what is this all about, and what kind of value proposal do you have with FutboLISTAS?
Yeah, so our general mission statement is that we teach English and life skills to girls through football and mentorship. But to break that down a little bit further, the big goals of the organization, we kind of have two main objectives. The first one is to create a space that is specifically for girls. So we have boys teams and we have girls teams, we have co-ed teams. No, this is a program for girls. We wouldn't exist if it wasn't, amazing to have girls involved. Every girl should be involved. I think it's also important. This is why I almost said a third one, but I think you can group it into that space. I think it's also important that space is created predominantly by women. So far, we've had all of our coaches be women. I'm definitely not opposed to having men involved as well. I would love to have more male allies involved. In fact, we're already working towards that this summer with a few key folks who've joined our team and support us now. But I think it's really important also that the girls have females coaching them and showing them, how to play football and kind of walking them through this experience, because it's just another way to reiterate that they belong on the soccer field, on the football field. I interchange so much with those two terms. And then the second goal that we have that I think is more of kind of a cultural way of looking at things in sports in general. It's less, I think, gender related and more in general, just kind of how Spain views sports, especially football, which is we want to show that football is so much more than just a sport, right? These girls are doing so much more than just getting physical exercise in, which is hugely important, and learning soccer skills. They're also learning teamwork, perseverance, communication, responsibility, leadership. The goal is really to focus on those things, not on competition, scoring goals. And by doing so, not only do we have a more inclusive environment that girls with all levels of football can come and participate, but we're also creating like a supportive community that's welcoming, even on, people's off days. I know we were talking just before we started recording about how, we all have our off days and whatnot. And what we want is for FutboLISTAS to be an environment that, helps support girls even on those days. And so by blending our female mentors into the program, I think it kind of extends the idea of it's more than sports, right? It's, again, leadership, teamwork, communication. We have women from different professional fields. They're local women. So this part we do in Spanish, but they come and talk about their career as an engineer, as an author, as a sports reporter, as a, whatever it may be. And they connect those dots. They connect the fact that, they're working together as a team on the field. Well, guess what? They've got to work together as a team to produce the sports radio show that they do every day. So, it's another way to show the girls, the families, and the community at large that we should want all of our girls participating in sport in general, but certainly in football, that's the world's most popular sport, Spain's most popular sport. We should encourage that because it's shaping them to be leaders in whatever field they want to go on to work in, whether it's a professional footballer or something completely unrelated. Their football experience is going to allow them to get much further in life if they stay with it and start early.
First, fantastic project. You have to say, or we have to say that, and we will talk more about it later. But actually, what you said, I was thinking here for myself. I think we already mentioned this in the podcast with other guests. There is nowadays, even the players, the adult players right now, they don't recognize that they are much more than footballers when they are playing. They are leaders. And what they can be after football. They don't think about what they can be. And actually, I think this is a product or a consequence of what we didn't have when we were young. So we were not educated to think about this way. I'm sorry to the rest of the world, but at least in Portugal, this was not a thing. So for us, the girls, they could not play, and in a lot of places around the world is like that. And we are still empowering women. We see a lot in a lot of places leadership courses. I mean, we were born with leadership. We only had the cultural and social barriers that were imposed to us, and we didn't see what we could be. This is the way that I think. And your project, alongside with football, you're teaching this to the girls. And when they will grow up, and they will be with this attached to their heads. So when they reach the maximum potential in the football field or outside of it, it doesn't matter what they decide to be in the future, they will be already with this included in their ship, let's say, in their microchip in their heads. I will use this but it is in humans. I think this is so important. It was something that I was connecting. I don't know if it makes sense or not, but it was really interesting to think about. And we need a lot of projects like yours. But you're based in Spain, so at least Spain is well. we already know you deliver the job. But actually, FutboLISTAS is an entrepreneurial project, and there's always something connecting entrepreneurship. And when someone starts an entrepreneurial adventure, Usually it's a sign they want to innovate with something or create something that it was missing, being disruptive in a way. In your case, in your project, what do you think or reckon it was lacking in Spain regarding the girls who are now part of your program? What was the so-called click that made you start something?
Yeah. So I think there's kind of three what I think our community needs that we aim to address in Spain. So the first one is just obviously the availability of teams for girls to join. There's a fundamental difference between a girl being one girl on a team full of boys compared to one girl on a team full of girls. I mean, it is just different. It's a different, we learn different. There's all sorts of science around how we play sports different, how we process sports strategy different. So it's fundamentally a different experience for a girl to be part of an all girls team. Not to say co-ed doesn't work. I've played co-ed for many years throughout my life, both younger and older. But again, addressing the need that there really were very limited all girls squads, and especially on the recreational side. So Spain, certainly in the 5 years I've lived in Sevilla, but if you go back to when I studied in Malaga in 2010, it's come a really long way in terms of having more opportunities for girls to get involved in the competitive space. So the first thing that we're trying to address is that recreational opportunity to be inclusive of girls of all skill levels, but also families of all economic status. I mean, competitive ball can get expensive. And so one of the things that we try to do at FutboLISTAS in general is keep prices low for everyone. But we also have really ambitious goals. COVID has put a little bit of a delay on things, but we have really ambitious goals about bringing our programs to the more marginalized neighborhoods and offering the programming for free so that we can make sure we're including every girl who wants to participate in the city. The second thing that I think we help to address or work towards is community buy-in for girls football. So I was mentioning earlier how a lot of parents in Spain that I've interacted with, as I was kind of doing market studies about, whether FutboLISTAS might actually be able to be successful, is there's a belief that football is this competitive, aggressive game, and it's got to be played that way if you want to be a professional footballer. And we could debate about that all day. I think there's different viewpoints on that competitive, how you need to be trained to be professional eventually. But we're working on community buy-in for not competitive and not football that's not aimed at creating professional players. So we're looking to create that community buy-in. And we're looking to try to get families excited about all of the life skills that, girls are going to learn playing with us, the self-confidence that's naturally going to increase as they, are out there supporting others, being supported by others, learning new skills. So that community buy-in is definitely the biggest key, I think, to overcoming the disparity that you still see between girls and boys, or even men's and women's opportunities in the football scene in Spain. And then the third thing that I notice is lacking, and this is both on and off the field, hence our mentorship aspect, are role models, or referentes, as they call them in Spain. There's not a lot of female role models. The media is still not giving nearly enough attention to the professional women's game. Again, a lot has changed in the 5-year window I've been in Sevilla, the 10-year window that I've been familiar with the football scene in Spain. But we're still very far behind in terms of, giving girls access to go to games, to watch games on TV, the media interviewing and actually spending the time telling stories about women, and not just, oh, she's a mom and she plays football. Yes, that's amazing. That's super important, but that's not the only story, right? There's a lot more we can do, just like we do for men, about how strong she is, how brave she is, how much of a leader she is. So I think there's a lot to be done in that realm as well. And community buy-in and realizing that more girls should be out there will naturally lead to more demand of those types of stories. So I think those are the big three buckets I'd say that we address, but I mean, I could go on and on for days. That's the beauty of social entrepreneurship, is like you're never really done working to affect change and fight for equality. So I'm sure it will morph over time and focus more or less on those three areas, perhaps add some additional ones. But at least for where we are now, which is still very early stage, those are definitely the three kind of main things that we're hoping to address.
Let me bring back the mission that Atlas Corp has, which is working towards 21st century challenges. And in a way, you're preparing these girls to be those reference among these challenges. We need to stop saying future challenges, but because they are already here. And because of COVID, I think they're like completely part of our discussions every day, I think. How do you see your mentees in the future? What kind of words would you like to be those that describe them as leaders and future reference working towards tackling these challenges in the future?
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people are, when they learn about FutboLISTAS, they ask me like how many girls we have that like might go pro, and wouldn't that be just the greatest thing to have someone on the national team? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, that would be amazing to have, future futbolistas on the Spain national team. I definitely hope we get there, but then I always bring it back to, but that's not our goal, right? There's a lot of other clubs that are better positioned to train girls for that type of professional career. I would be more happy. What my like ideal scenario and things coming full circle would be is more that, in 15 years, we have one of our little ones who tells about how she became an engineer because she was inspired by Amaya Davis, who's one of our mentors, who's an engineer, works for NASA and Lockheed Martin. And I would love for her to say, that exposure helped her think about that career and the skills that she learned on the soccer field. So, that leadership, teamwork, communication, all of these life skills. I would love for future futbolistas to talk about their off the field careers that way and relate it back to their experience with futbolistas, whether it's exposure to a new career path through our mentors or just gaining the self-confidence and those other life skills to go out and try something and go after their goals. That to me would actually carry a lot more weight, and I think would speak more to the exact type of impact that I hope that the FutboLISTAS program has on our girls.
Fantastic. Actually, the next question would be more or less like this, because you already answered. But connecting these dots and the actual times that we are living in, I was about to say pandemic, but we always use the word pandemic nowadays. It's already enough for us. But yeah, you explained to us and to our audience what is FutboLISTAS all about. You want to inspire, to educate the girls and prepare the next generations. And actually, you already talked about a bit what you want these girls to be one day. But regarding the project itself, regarding actually what you built as an entrepreneur, you had the goals you settled in the beginning. So what is your nearest goal to achieve right now? And if what you started, the project, if a lot changed it, if only some pieces change it, or do you think you follow the project the way you settled it until now?
Yes, great question. So I'm trying to think about how I can answer this in a concise way, because it's a bit of a loaded question, especially with the global pandemic that I agree we're all tired of talking about, but it's an important thing to bring up. I will say that I don't think the goals, short-term or long-term, for futbolistas have changed too much, but certainly the path to achieving them has. So we actually haven't been active out on the field since March of last year when the pandemic hit. There have been a lot of different protocol in place. It's changed throughout the year. There's definitely moments where we could have done pretty dang close to what we aim to do with our normal program, but other moments that it wouldn't have been anything like what we're trying to create at FutboLISTAS. So for example, I can't imagine enrolling our girls in a program where everyone's got to be masked, socially distanced, and we can't share materials. So one, I mean, we're already doing practices in most girls' second language in English. That's really tough when a mask's involved and you can't see a mouth move. Two, socially distanced is not how we like to do things at FutboLISTAS. We are a big, loving environment, supportive environment. We high five, we hug, and not being able to do that would just take so much away, I think, of that close-knit community we have. And then, not sharing materials and whatnot. Again, we're not training these girls on hardcore technique. That's not what we aim to do. We're doing interactive drills. We definitely review passing, shooting, positioning, dribbling, all of the kind of basic things in football. Absolutely, we touch on, but our goal is not to get those skills to the best place they can possibly be. So, having each girl have their own ball, not really being able to interact as such a new organization. It was a tough decision, and I have battled and kind of fought myself back and forth all year about whether it's been the right one. But we made the decision to not get out on the field for this school year because we didn't want to do harm to the brand. We're very new. We are trying to do something very different with how we run our practices, who's involved, so on and so forth. And so we committed to working our tails off the field in this off season to make sure that we are ready for not just full return, but we have very aggressive objectives for how many girls we hope to involve, how many sites we hope to offer the program, how many days of the week we hope to offer the program. And it's been a difficult period being paused. I mean, we've shared some virtual activities with our girls, but obviously I know they're dying to get back out on the field, and that's been really hard to sit with. But I'm 100% confident that the work we've done off the field since is positioning us to give them a much better experience than they ever would have had we tried to kind of rush things and piece things together amidst the global pandemic. So we are kind of short-term goals. We're in the process of finalizing quite a few partnerships. One that I definitely can't talk about yet, but I will update you guys when I can. That will mean really, really, really big things for us. But another one that I'm equally as excited about. So we'll be partnering with really kind of 3 organizations this summer. So Women in Soccer, which is an amazing community and platform I know you guys are familiar with, for women who want to stay involved in football and whatnot. So we'll be working with an intern through Women in Soccer this summer to help work alongside me on refining our curriculum. We want to break it down a little bit more by age group. Instead of grouping all girls from 5 to 12 together, we want to go ahead and break that down into smaller age groups so we can deliver more age appropriate content. And then in collaboration with We Coach, who we'll be working with to kind of redefine our theory of change, everything from the mission to individual objectives we hope to achieve, and a strategy for measuring our impact moving forward. And then we're also going to be working with Coaches Across Continent, another amazing organization, to really help us, set things up for the school year ahead. We initially ran 10-week seasons, and we're going to go all in and offer the programming for the entire school year. And Coaches Across Continents is going to help us prepare not just the curriculum, but also our coaches for that school year ahead. So really excited about that. Along with that, as I hinted at earlier, now that we'll have more folks involved in the program, we'll be offering, more activities and events and whatnot. We also have some exciting goals around bringing this program to some of the more marginalized neighborhoods in Seville. Actually, of the 15 poorest neighborhoods in Spain, 6 of those are in Seville. And so there is a lot of opportunity to reach some of the low income neighborhoods and offer this programming for free that could help to really change lives and give a lot more girls opportunities that they may never see on the football field, and also just kind of in general, right, with their development as people. So those are kind of our short-term goals. But I will note that I have a maybe overly ambitious, maybe not, long-term dream for FutboLISTAS, which I hope we can achieve maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, which would be actually to open up the age group so expand it to include girls 13 to 18. And my goal with that programming would be to be more focused on the career development. So I know I mentioned my dream is, they are professionals outside of the soccer world. And that's certainly what I hope that element of the program is focused on, more shadowing our mentors, learning from, what they do, visiting their workplaces, maybe getting internships through those mentors in their companies. So I would love to have kind of that second element where the girls are still involved. They can help actually as coaches for the younger girls. But that, we're providing continued programming basically until they're ready for university. So hopefully they have a clearer idea of what they want to study. And it's not like me where I'm like, oh, what should I go into? Hopefully they will have had some more exposure to different careers and specifically to female role models in those career paths to make a decision when it comes time for, what they want to study in university.
Well, I really hope I don't sound cliche while saying this, but probably I will. But for now, since we are stopping our lives in a bit, I think we need those ambitious dreams, because maybe until we got this off time from the streets and we had to return to our houses and think about the projects we were doing, this is when we actually understood, okay, maybe I am doing the right thing, or maybe I just need to switch and try and contribute in some other way to the path that I'm delivering right now. So I think we can stay talking about FutboLISTAS, because there are many ways we can see this as a project involved in contributing to many challenges, if not only in Spain, but most of the things that you're tackling, we all have them, and we need more projects like this in our territories. But actually, talking about going further from this project specifically, some of the things that we like to discuss here in Tugol's podcast are related to building skills for future talent who are interested in enrolling in the football industry. So since you have worked in different companies and different sectors and in projects with multidisciplinary perspectives, could you please advise to our audiences how to successfully adapt to diverse working environments?
Yes, and not just how to adapt, but how to seek diverse working environments. Diversity is powerful. Diversity breeds creativity, it breeds productivity, it breeds innovation, and probably most importantly, it breeds empathy. And so I'm very fortunate to have grown up in a very diverse neighborhood. I actually remember that the essay I had to write to get into Virginia Tech was an essay on diversity, and it couldn't have been easier. I think my opening line referenced the fact that there were 34 maternal languages spoken at my high school. And so I have always been blessed to learn from other cultures and appreciate that diversity. And so I think to start, I would encourage anyone who's not already in a diverse community to find one to be a part of, to learn from. And that can be in many different ways, right? Go, volunteer at an organization on the other side of town, attend cultural events and fairs where you can learn about other countries and cultures, study abroad. I mean, my first time ever using my passport was when I went to Spain in 2010. It overlapped with Spain winning the World Cup. It was like the most amazing experience I've ever had. And obviously it's now led to what I hope is a lifetime living in Spain. And so I think it's really important for everyone to expose themselves to diverse communities. There's a lot of science behind the fact that diverse teams are more productive, more creative, more supportive, empathetic. So get involved as much as you can with diverse communities, be open-minded, be ready to learn, be ready to accept the fact that how you think things are might not actually be how things are everywhere for everyone. And specifically for folks who want to go into anything related to, sport for social change, understanding the impact that sport can have on many different types of communities, whether we're talking, obviously my project focuses mostly on gender equality, but I mean, you can also talk about how sports can work toward bridging creating a bridge between, folks with disabilities. There's all sorts of ways nowadays that we can get creative and make sure those individuals feel included in the game. There's ways to engage refugee populations, homeless populations that are just beyond powerful. And I think until you learn from the perspective of individuals sitting in kind of other, privileged or less privileged situations, you don't really appreciate the full picture of how much sport can achieve. So yeah, that's definitely my advice. Go out there, meet people who are different from you, be genuinely curious about their experience, open-minded, and ready to help should you feel a calling toward the social sector like I do.
Perfect. Amen to that. I have to say that because this is actually something that me and Maria, we talked about a lot, and we use another expression that we need to think always outside of the box and be outside of the box ourselves. And only with that we can look up to everything in a different way. And we studied abroad. I have to say, I live in Switzerland, but I am from Portugal, so I studied abroad too, and Maria too. And I think it was because of that we met. It was because of that we create this, and probably this will be a platform for everybody. We hope so. That's why that we always say that diversity, inclusion, and equality should be inherent in ourselves since a young age. So for me, it's a shame to be fighting for this today, because it should be already inherent, but we don't have the society that we want. So we need to keep fighting. But sometimes working with this gives us, or we can achieve some awards. And this was what you did. We did it. Unfortunately, no. I'm kidding right now, but in your case, it was true. So you were named the Andalusian Businesswoman of the Year in 2020 for the entrepreneurial project category with FutboLISTAS. And receiving awards can generate different feelings depending on the person who is receiving it. We know that. So in your case, how did you feel being awarded? And how relevant are these recognitions for women to gain visibility within working environments?
Yeah, well, first, I think Two Goals is well on its way to winning some awards, so keep at it. But yeah, I mean, that award has been probably the biggest surprise of my life during the pandemic. Program full on pause, essentially, minus some virtual activities, and yet received this very big honor. I still kind of can't believe it happened, but just feel very blessed to have been nominated and then ultimately awarded the recognition. And I think it's hugely important. So this is from the Federation of Andalusian Female Business Owners. I'm like trying to translate their name in my head here. And that organization in general is just hugely important. I mean, it's business owners, entrepreneurs, and business owners who are women who come together and meet and attend networking events and have learning sessions and whatnot, similar to like the platform that Leadership Women Football is setting up, right, with their academy and all sorts of courses to be a part of and other women to connect with. Women in Soccer has a similar arena that they've created. Hugely important, especially for entrepreneurs. Like, I can't even explain how unprepared, I guess, I was for entrepreneurship. I mean, I just don't think you can ever really be prepared for it. But I don't know that I would have known that had I not had a network of women who were there kind of supporting me, when things are very roller coastery, which entrepreneurial journeys always are. It was so helpful to have women kind of telling me, this is normal, like, you got this, hang with it. And I think for me, winning that award was kind of a way to show other business owners, right, but also our girls who are living very difficult moments in their lives where they're not able to socialize normal or get out and play normal. Everything has changed so much during this pandemic. And I think it was an incredibly powerful platform to be able to kind of share my experience and share my stories of perseverance. I've always been a very organized type A person. Like I love to like study and prepare for things. And so entrepreneurship doesn't let you do that. And so that's been very interesting. And I've learned so much through it. And I think specifically for women, it's challenging because there's a TED Talk, and I believe she has a book also. Reshma Saujani, I believe is how you pronounce it. She's the founder of Girls Who Code. And she gave a speech that impacted me a lot, that I remember seeing for TED, around how we need to work on raising our girls to be brave and not perfect. Society kind of, teaches girls we've got to like do the right thing and be quaint and be polite and be, all the things that society is telling us to be, whereas boys just get to like run wild and be brave and take risks. And that has definitely, I think, created professional barriers for women too, that we ourselves kind of inflict on ourselves. There's lots of studies also around, women who will see a job description and we've got 9 out of 10 of the skills they require, but we're like, not sure I'm going to go for that. I don't meet the qualifications. Whereas like a man will see the same job application or job posting, maybe have 4 of the 10 bullet points and like dives right in and applies. Right. And so I think it's important to be working on, how we can encourage others to be brave and take leaps and jump into the entrepreneurial journey, for example. But I think it also builds back to the fact that where did I first learn that skill? Where did I first learn to be brave? It was on the soccer field. It was playing football. It was maybe missing a PK in a big tournament one year. And then the next year I take the final penalty kick and win it for the team. Like it's those types of experiences that teach you to stick with things, to take risks, to put yourself out there. So yeah, I think that award was just a great opportunity to talk about perseverance, taking risks, and going after your dreams, both for the community in general and for our girls. Definitely. They watched the speech. They're so cute.
Brittany, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of this interview, but you make the perfect connection for our last question, the way that we wanted to end this episode, which is that I think there is a problem for people that they have always felt that female empowerment and struggling towards equality, they felt that this is only related to sentiments, maybe to passion, but this is also based in facts. And in this case, you already mentioned, for example, the importance of Girls Who Code. And this is a project who has been, for example, I know they have been present in Colombia, and they do have ways to monitor and evaluate the impact of having girls working in STEAM careers. And in your case, you have quoted many times, I did the research, you have quoted in a specific study called Women Plus Sports Equals Executive Success, who was built by ESPNW and Ernst & Young. And I would like your thoughts on this. What kind of insights could you please bring for these results? And from your experience as well, how do you feel about this connection? Is this real? Do you think that sports are really important for professional success in the case for women?
Yes, there are lots of studies that prove this, but the one that you mentioned, the ESPNW and Ernst & Young one, I think is just a fantastic example of it. To start, it's a global study. So they surveyed over 400 global women in positions, of leadership. And 94% of those women had played sports growing up. There is such a direct correlation there. That's undeniable. There's all sorts of other studies that can back up those facts. And so, yeah, to me, it's undeniable. And it's now become my life mission to make sure that in Spain, it's very clear within the community that is true, that there are opportunities for more girls to get involved with sports. Just like I mentioned on the last question that you guys had, mean, the entrepreneurial journey and thinking about doing something that I didn't have prior training in, even a startup. I hadn't worked in, an entrepreneurial environment, especially in the beginning stages before. And there was a huge learning curve. There still is. Oh my goodness. I learned something every day with FutboLISTAS. And I think that I know that I would not have had the confidence and grit to go head first, dive into this journey, let alone in a foreign country in my second language for the most part. Like, just that is such an uphill battle. And I just don't think that I would have been able to achieve that had I not, my whole life been fighting out on the football field and trying to, win games, support my teammates, So I think there's an undeniable correlation. There's, again, many studies you can look at. And I think the longer that you play sports is kind of the second half of that study, where over 50% of women in the C-suite positions, so your executive positions, played competitively at the university level. And so I think that's another really important topic when we talk about getting girls in sports. It's also keeping girls in sports. So like the Women's Sports Foundation, that's now kind of their number one mission, because there is such a rate of girls dropping out of sports once they hit adolescence. And so hence the goal for FutboLISTAS is to include, older girls as well in the program and still have them involved in football, maybe not as heavily, but keep it in their lives, because it really does just set all girls, all women up for, having more confidence, communicating better, being more comfortable working with team members. Sometimes that can be quite difficult, So I think that there's an undeniable case to be made in terms of play sports when you're younger. You will be better prepared for whatever professional career you're going after. And so we're certainly trying to contribute our little grain of sand. I actually don't know if that's only a saying in Spanish and if I just made it up in English, but happy to be able to contribute a little bit to that, and hope that, there's already a ton of organizations that do similar things worldwide. And I hope to just see more and more organizations using sport for social change, especially when it comes to gender equality.
Well, first of all, this is the good part about diversity. This is good that we have a Portuguese here, a Spanish speaker, and a native English speaker. So we can, if this say was not in English, we should definitely create this and implement it in our dialogues. But Brittany, thank you so much for connecting us with your passion. Thank you for helping us remember the importance of using football as a tool for girls and women to achieve goals, to develop a sense of responsibility towards global challenges, to understand the importance of diversity and inclusion to success professionally, and definitely to seek a purpose-driven career for them to take their future in their hands and build something out of it. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate the platform. Thanks for helping give visibility to FutboLISTAS and to so many other incredible organizations and women doing amazing things in the football space. So I wish you guys the best of luck with 2 goals. I'm sure awards are coming. Keep up with it.
Fingers crossed, definitely. And for our audiences, thank you so much for following us in all our platforms, for sharing our content and acknowledging our messages. Remember, our account is 2 Goals Podcast. We're present on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and recently on LinkedIn. So please, you have plenty of places to give us some love and to discuss with us all of these important topics. Stay tuned for more and have a lovely rest of the week.